Signals in the deep, markets never sleep. Whales move silent, but we speak. On-chain truth, no disguise. This is Leviathan, open your eyes.
Hello everyone, what's up? Leviathan News here. A new week. We're starting it on a Tuesday, but a new week for us of streaming after all. And I'm excited for my new guests. I actually wanted to have them on last week, but with me being all over the place, we didn't really get to do it at that time. But I'm very happy to start this new week with these gentlemen. And one of them, surely our audience already recognizes, but let me first and foremost present the Altitude Finance gentlemen. First and foremost, Tobias, the co-founder. Nice to meet you and have you on Leviathan News for the first time, sir. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
An honor. Also, Luca, an early user and investor, if I understand correctly, Luca. And guys, feel free to correct me at any point. Nice to have you on as well on Leviathan News for the first time, Luca.
Thank you very much.
And of course, with no intro needed, probably, TokenBrice. What's up?
Hi.
Nice to see you again. A good friend of the show. We were honored to have him on quite a few times. Always fun to have you on. Always elevates the discussion. And this is actually like a protocol that I've learned about. You know, I don't think it was the Bryce. For a change, I don't think it was you.
Not the first mention, but I got you like.
Sorry?
Not the first mention, but I put it on your radar because I felt this is when you woke up like, hey, I need those guys on my show. Okay, let's make this happen.
because it was actually DK. Shout out DK. I really like this guy. Was also someone I met in Belgrade actually in 2024 when he was working for another project. And when he started working at Altitude, very early on, he sent me a message about it. I was like, man, I don't know, it's so early, and I wasn't really doing a lot of content myself back then as well. So I kind of waited with it. And I don't know when it was, a few weeks ago or something like that, I saw Bryce talking about it more and more. I saw this theme, of lending aggregation, that I think is going to be a main topic for us today, and is a main topic for Altitude, and I wanted to learn more. So hopefully I'm going to have you gentlemen on to talk some lending aggregation, what it is, why is it important, why is it such a necessary new piece of infrastructure within DeFi specifically. And just before we jump on that, I actually have another short message I want to have with the audience. I've actually, we have these auctions for the weekly, what's it called? For our weekly sponsorships, the QR code and the pinned posts. And also we've added just now like a Squid interview. We're trying a lot of stuff with our auctions, and it's actually very nice.
Proud partner of the first one.
Indeed, Bryce is always ahead, and he's definitely.
I like to try stuff.
We were very actually honored to have you. Your record from that first one was broken just 2 weeks ago by Alice that purchased it for Machi, an NFT creator. And then Robo won it for Tokamak. And this week I actually won both Squid passes. And what I want to present is actually a team that I've not only interviewed in the beginning of this year, I've actually also started working with them on some content and comms on myself. So I'm actually proud to present for this week our sponsors, courtesy of me for a change. Frankencoin, which is actually a decentralized and oracleless design of a Swiss franc stablecoin. And in an industry so filled with USD stablecoins, some more decentralized than others, as some people in the group here will argue. I do think that the Swiss franc, in general, as a concept on chain, brings another unique dimension that is still very much underexplored, and I'm very excited to join the guys at the Frankencoin Association and trying to help them grow, and surely we'll be happy to have your advice, Bryce. And
so you joining like as a kind of long-term advisor to help them grow, and
not even I don't know if you call it an advisor, like comms and content, I think is the best way to describe it. If they will also listen to me about some other stuff from some reason, great. But mostly it's about how to deliver some of the messages and what kind of content we can create over there in order to just, amplify the message. But for me, let me tell you, I think it was very unique. And, maybe I think it's also maybe because I'm not US based, and I'm not like... I think that many people are dollar oriented, like no matter what, you know what I mean? And for me personally,
it's really cool what they do.
Yeah, it's more open. Like, it's not Michael. Like, I think it's very difficult to convince an American to think of other of another like currency rather than the dollar.
They will get to it. They will get to it a bit later than the other, and they will get a worse rate when they swap their coin out. But that's the rule of the game.
Yeah, I actually think it's nice. So shout out Frankencoin. And okay, guys, let's get to the main dish here. So Tobias, if you don't mind, let's start with you. Can you share a few words about your own journey and how you've entered the space, and in general, give us the brief intro of how you found yourself and when you found yourself. Okay, I have this new idea, like I imagine it, and there's this new piece of infrastructure that I'm not finding as a user, I imagine, and I just need to lead and build it. So that's the way I imagine the process has happened, but please take it and give us the real story on your side.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it started. So before Altitude, I've built 2 Web2 technology companies. And when I got kind of interested in crypto with the launch of Ethereum, kind of the composability, smart contracts. I think as an entrepreneur, that's amazing to see, where you have a kind of a design space where you don't need other people's permission to build something if you want it to exist. And then when I was setting my second company, that coincided with DeFi summer. So that's when I kind of jumped into crypto full time and started actively yield farming. So by then I built up a stash of ETH and BTC. Started borrowing against it on Compound and Aave, farming the Aave tokens and the Comp tokens, and then deploying into the lovely Curve 200% APY pools. That took up a lot of my attention over the summer. And we were doing that with a few friends, and what we noticed is that we noticed kind of 2 issues. One is that the interest rates on Compound and Aave are obviously variable. And they were all over the place. So one day you take out a loan on Aave because it was the best rate, and 2 days later, Compound gives you a better rate. But you've borrowed, so you're kind of stuck unless you repay your loan. Repaying your loan, you had to withdraw from Curve, $200 gas fees, not very fun. So that was the first issue that we saw, that the interest rates kind of fluctuated continuously. And then the other problem was that is kind of when you're borrowing against your BTC and ETH, you always have to choose what loan to value you're borrowing at. And if you borrow at a low loan to value, that's very capital inefficient because you're locking up a lot of capital and you only unlock a small portion of USD. And if you borrow at a high loan to value, you have the risk of liquidation. So we were like, okay, there's got to be a way to kind of automate this process where As the price drops, you kind of repay your loan, and as the price increases, you can borrow more. So that was kind of the origin of Altitude. So basically, so what it is now is still those two components. On one end, it's a borrow aggregator. So when you borrow, it's integrated in DeFi with the larger protocols, and it finds you the best rate. And it doesn't just find you the best rate when you take the loan, it also refinances the loan if it finds a cheaper rate. So you take the loan through Altitude, and then Altitude will automatically move your loan from in between lending providers depending on the lowest interest rate. So that's the first kind of big part of Altitude. And then the second component is the capital efficiency, where it automatically maintains like a safe but pretty aggressive LTV. And so as a user, you can take out a conservative LTV. So let's say you borrow at 40%. Then Altitude will borrow an additional 20%, bringing your loan to value to 60%. And then it yield farms with those funds. And because it yield farms with those funds, we can, so first of all, we found you the cheapest borrow rate. And because of that, those additional earnings, we can drive the rate down even further. And that results in, like, at the moment, if you borrow at 25% loan to value, just to make it very concrete, if you borrow at 25% loan to value, your loan is interest free. And if you borrow under 25% loan to value, your loan starts to repay itself.
Yeah,
which I know sounds too
I can
good
give
to be true.
colors here on my my position without giving specific, just those figures. I'm at 16.2 loan to value on wrap stakies, and essentially I have a loan API. So on the borrow side, on the total I'm borrowing in USDC, I'm already in minus at minus 33%.334. But the fun side is also that the supply side is also earning 6.7% net, with about half of it being the ALTI token. So you have price assumption here. But so the overall construct is more than free of cost. It's like paid to borrow effectively in those conditions where it's maximizing the benefit, I want to say, of Altitude, which is the low LTV situation. But it's not the only way to use it. Sorry, I just wanted to bring like concrete.
No, that's actually great because just again to try and maximally dumb it down for myself, because the audience is smarter, the audience already understand what's up, but for me, just to make sure that I understand, basically you're saying that you guys have built Tobias, you guys have built a system in order to really like create a lot of order and capital efficiency within like DeFi lending. And if I understand correctly, right now it also gets into situations in which either you're getting like a better rate like for your loan than you would get on the same place it's actually taken if you would taken it like independently. Like if I had gone directly to protocol X and taken that loan, I wouldn't have gotten the same price that and the same conditions that I would have gotten like if I used it using Altitude. And at some point, if I understand again correctly, like Bryce's smile over there, it gets to the point that like the good old alchemics, they like you're being paid to borrow money. Is that am I on the direction of what's
it's basically
DeFi is so surreal that you never know. You know?
It's like inventing new primitives in a sense. But basically, if you think about it, what's happening is that what Altitude did is recreated the bank philosophically, fundamentally. What bank does is takes your deposit and then lends it to other people and keeps the profit from it. What Altitude does is they offer it to you. So they take your loan to LTV as an excess. They yield it in different ways, but you get to keep the profit from that, and they take a small cut. So what Alchemics did, just in a different way. So that's one of the things that really draw me in to Altitude. That basically when the whole thing clicked. In capital efficiency, that's fine. but basically just recreating in a new way things that existed for, I think, since when is the fractional reserve system out? Tobias, you're the TradFi
Long
guy.
time ago. Long time ago.
Long time ago. So it's basically just reinventing,
Pre-Bitcoin.
Pre-Bitcoin. Reinventing the wheel a little bit to some extent. Yeah.
And I mean,
Just wanted
yes
to
and
add that
no,
note
because
because
it's
that's important.
building on what we kind of already all doing manually. I want to say, like if you're responsible ape, you have some ETH put somewhere to borrow. I don't know. You have a stash of 50 ETH and you're borrowing, I don't know, 50K out of it or 100K even. And one of the reasonable, you have two ways to risk manage this essentially. One way is the stable are kept somewhere that is pretty liquid and you can essentially repay debt pretty fast. Other way is recollateralization. So you simply have other ETH, let's say another stash of 50 ETH that you put in an easy stuff like a yearn vault because you want to have them available to recollateralize if ETH pukes on your face this morning. And so what Altitude does is essentially, hey, why do you bother with your little yearn vault and your liquidity loan or whatever? Just put all your ETH there. And whatever is your situation LTV wise, we will do what's the most optimized. So either you are kind of max borrowing, and then there is not much margin to yield max because you're already using all that margin, but still, you're getting the best rate on the venues. Or if you're in a period where you repaid a lot of your debt already and you have low LTV, well, that's fine because this extra collateral is yielding for you anyway and accruing in collateral terms. So it's like a long ETH position, essentially, the excess ETH you put there.
Yeah, spot on. And it's interesting. We've actually seen users over the last kind of year go through these different stages as well. Like maybe they come in and max borrow, and then like they have an investment that works out, and then they repay, and their loan for a while sits at like 15-20%, and it goes down. And then maybe they've got some life expenses, or they want to buy a new car, or they want to do another investment, and then they borrow more. So they use kind of as a piggy bank. And as you said, like what I love. Because I'm also using it myself, obviously. But what I love there is that you can just use that as your primary position, and you just kind of take what you need. And then when you've got USDC left over, you just put it back, and then it's always working for you.
Could even be used by DAOs or projects, like a constitution DAO of the day that raised 5 million in ETH or whatever to finance whatever they want to do, the pizza party or whatever is this projects of this DAO. Well, okay, they put their ETH there, they're yielding, they borrow as they need. They try to manage their LTV, obviously, like every borrowers, but this helps also quite a lot. I think
Yeah,
we
for sure.
could see that.
They don't need to sell their ETH; they can just borrow against it. Pay their
The EF
operational
eventually.
expenses. Yeah,
One day,
like,
when the
let's hope
stars
so.
align.
Yeah. I mean, it took them how many years to start using Aave? So, well, let's see. But it would be great.
Luca, are you there? I want to ask you something. If you're not there, I can wait on that one. Tobias, you've mentioned that you're using it yourself. I often find it to be the case that when a founder builds something because first and foremost he wants to use it, this is usually a very positive signal. Like this is someone identifying like a proper need in the market that he wants to use, and it's often a very important driving force in how the industry actually moves itself forward. Was it really something that you wanted to build to use yourself, or was it something that I don't know, like people started asking you about, and it was more about solving it for other people? Like, what actually made you realize that this is like your number one opportunity? Because you described that you've already like built businesses. You probably could have done a lot of things with your time and energy. What made you actually be drawn to build Altitude to become what it is and to provide the service that it does?
Yeah, I mean, it was literally me using kind of Compound, Aave, and Curve in exactly the way I described, and just being kind of frustrated with, or like not just frustrated, but also kind of seeing from an entrepreneurial point of view, seeing the design space and seeing that in this space, you can actually, when you see a problem like that, when you do something manually, there's nothing stopping you from creating a product out of it or creating a protocol out of it or a system, because everything is permissionless, and that's what I absolutely love about this space. So initially we were like, okay, this is definitely there's an economic opportunity for ourselves to optimize our own position. So then we started thinking about, okay, should we start to automate this? We kind of built some on-chain automations to kind of automate this process. And then kind of it became clear that there's no one else doing this. And then also, obviously, remember back then, the gas fees on Mainnet were really high. So you couldn't really do this for individual positions. So we needed the scale of a protocol where you can kind of refinance an entire vault, so that you can you only pay for gas once, because gas fees, it doesn't matter if you move 1 million or 10 million or 100 million. And so the combination of that was like, yeah, let's turn this into a protocol. That was it. And as an entrepreneur, it's just this is the first time that I'm building something for myself, and yeah, that's just it's a lot easier because you're building, you know exactly what you want yourself, and then you start building that, and every iteration, you know exactly the direction you want to take it. So that's why.
It seems like the most organic situation to build in and for.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Intrinsic building rather than you know.
Yeah, and we saw an opportunity to actually build something in the space, because I think it's one thing to be to kind of use crypto and use DeFi, but I think it's something else entirely to build something in DeFi. And so we also saw I completely fell in love with the space during DeFi summer, and kind of see everything that's going on. And this was a way to kind of build something in DeFi that I think would benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, to touch on your point there, I'd actually add that, you know, I don't know if any industry or like how many industries a team can build, like a team wherever they are, no, not even matter like what size they are, they can build a service or a product, and so many potential people around the world everywhere can use it. And it creates like, it's not like being a banker in another country where you have no effect on, I don't know, whatever's outside of your circle over there and whatever. Like this is so, this is such a unique field in which like, yeah, a team of like 3 or 4 people, I'm not saying that this is Altitude, I'm just saying in general, they can start an idea and build it, and people from all over the world will find themselves using it after a while, which I don't know how many industries can say that, but it is quite remarkable. And I can only imagine how different it is to become a builder in the space rather than just a user. Bryce, what made you actually like notice this one? Because you know, you're very you're on top of things. You've already built project yourself. You're very much into like DeFi lending and DEXs, and like you live and breathe DeFi. How come like what about Altitude made you realize that, okay, this is first of all something you need to check, and then after checking it for a bit, what actually made you realize that, okay, this is something that you're not only checking, you're becoming like an actual user of and supporter of?
Yeah, I got chilled on it, I think, at this Belgrade. That's when it first popped on my radar. And it was pretty much, you know, from the very basic DeFi side of things. Hey, you can loan better here.
You're talking about this Belgrade a few months ago, the last one?
Yep.
You've heard it directly from Tobias or from whom?
I'm not even sure.
I think DK spoke
DK,
with him
yeah,
first.
that would be him. Yeah,
Shout
made the
out
connection.
DK, such a great guy, really.
And yeah, onboarded the product, started using it, and kind of went through the flow, different borrowing strategies, and settled more into this one where I'm happy now of more lowish LTV around the 15%, as I was saying earlier. But yeah, I guess there's something I can share screen, right?
Yeah.
Something I wanted to show, because it's more after I started using it. So it was in August. I wrote an article and I started to intellectualize, let's say, my usage of it a bit more. And I think this is probably the most informing part of the article. It's just this little infographics showing you what happened in lending, because I think people still have a bit of old mental models of it sometimes. But essentially, the customizability, that's what I call it here, but like what is a loan technically, and the various parameters of it have evolved pretty widely in 5 years ish of DeFi, from the very standardized one size fit all pool model of the early compound and Avi, uh, to the maximal customizability, which is stuff like Morpho, what you can do with Morpho today, or what you could do already back in the day, but they didn't have much traction with something like Eastland. Essentially, the peer-to-peer approach is to lending, where everything is possible because you're just putting two peers in contact, and if they want to use potato as collateral and shellfish as borrow asset, that's their problem. As long as they agree, your job is done. um, and yeah, so the result of this, and this is like a very schematic representation of reality. You'll notice, you don't have tons of lending protocols there, that have you could place at various area of the spectrum. I don't know, like the Silo, Euler, Camino, and so on. Uh, but it's becoming immensely more complex, to even just answer the question of uh, even something precisely formulated, like, okay, I have ETH as collateral, I'm willing to take any LSD, LRTs, as long as they're not too gambly form, and I want to borrow dollar. I don't really care which dollar I'm borrowing because I'm going to swap it anyway. So that could be like a user demand precisely formulated, that should be answerable by one single answer. But the reality is there is so much granularity in the options deliverable to the users now, that it's not. Because, okay, would you like to be more optimizing for interest rate or LTV? Do you care about your liquidations being partial or total? And so you see, you have to decompile a bit all the nuances and density of the lending products, uh, to be able to aggregate properly. I guess another good illustration of this, I just came to my mind today, is, like, to illustrate how law got complexified over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Usually people refer to like their influence with code penal, or whatever, the penal code. And essentially the book keep getting more insane, and now it's, I don't know how many humanities of life you need to read it all. And it just happened over the last 40 years. Well, you have a bit of a similar pattern. Look at AVI v1 parametrization for an asset. And my memory is not so good, because I wasn't so technical as looking at it back then, but it was a reasonable count of parameters, maybe let's say in the 20-ish range. On the V3 today, because of all the variants of the kink, the E mode, the isolation mode, all the complexities that has been added, I think you need around 50-ish parameters to specify on an asset that you onboard on AVI. So that also, parameter counts roughly x3, let's say, or 2.5 in 4 years. That shows you something. Complexity exponentially increasing, exponentially because it increases protocol level, but you have more and more protocol and they interact more and more. So it's also multiplying itself. And like, how do you help the users in navigating that? Essentially, that was kind of like the whole reflection of this article. And yeah, I think a credible way to address this is aggregating the lending option and abstracting it even from the users. And yeah, because it can't be all flowers guy, I'm sorry, but to be really like the perfect incarnation of what I'm describing here, you would need obviously a bit more venues, and I guess that's like the next big step for you guys, being heavy compound right now. And I think, really being able to tap into all the diversity of DeFi is what will develop like the competitive edge.
Yeah. And for us, the trade-off is there's a continuous kind of trade-off for us where the more choice you offer the user, the more you kind of the more complicated you make it for them. So we're continuously trying to walk this fine line between what is necessary complexity we need to introduce to make the users get the most out of their position, versus how can we keep it as simple as possible for the user to use. So as an example, when we launched our BTC Vault, we didn't want to launch a wrap BTC Vault and a CBBTC Vault. So we made the decision for the user to go for CBBTC. And that's one of the things that the user doesn't have to think anymore. But you could also argue that makes it like the user doesn't have all the choice. So that's something that we continuously keep in mind with Altitude. Like, what are some of the choices that we offer to users that really give them like additional benefit and value, and what are some of the choices we can make for the user so that they don't have to think.
Can you maybe use that example as to why you've done it, Tobias? Like, for example, why did you decide that you guys should only go on that case with CBBTC and eliminate the opportunity to choose Wrap BTC? And by the way, I definitely agree with your idea there that and I think this generation is a great demonstration of it. Like, too much choice is just as much of an obstacle as not enough choice. Like, often you even found yourself more unaware of what to do when you have like a vast array of opportunities to go for, and you're just too confused and you do nothing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. So what we want to prevent is that users coming in have to make 10, 15 micro decisions just to be able to use the protocol. And so I think what we're building is kind of a system where people have to make a few choices, but not too many choices. So, for example, with Wrap BTC and CBBTC, when we initially looked at it, we saw very little benefit of launching with both. Both have very deep liquidity, both have a strong peg, both are widely used in DeFi. And then we asked our initial users that put ETH in, and we asked them what their preference was. And a lot of the feedback we got was like, I mean, I slightly prefer one, but I'm also happy with the other. And so there were very few people that were kind of that said I would definitely use one, but not the other. So based on that feedback, we were like, well, it seems like most of our users are they don't care that much about the two assets. So that's when we did kind of a deep dive ourselves and really looked into the background of both systems, both tokens, the governance side of things, the custody side of things, how they deal with blacklists, all of those elements. And then our conclusion was that CBBTC was the best choice for most users. And so that's how we kind of came to that conclusion. And so the result is now that as a user, if you have BTC, you come in and you don't really have to think like, okay, which version of BTC am I going to use? You just convert whatever you have, or you already have CBBTC, and then you deposit. But there's another kind of design decision we made early on, and that's where when we put the idle capital to work, some people initially asked us if we could make a system where they could actually choose themselves where they would deploy the funds, in which yield farm. because we have a lot of users that obviously are very experienced in DeFi, and they know exactly where they would or wouldn't farm. And so that was a tough decision, but in the end we decided that it's better to manage everything entirely as a vault, so that you don't, as a user, you don't have to stay on top of the rates yourself all the time, but you can rely on kind of the community managing the vault and making sure it's farming in the right places.
With a camera issue for a moment, apologize. What would you guys say, like, who needs to be using it? Like, because I think that at least in the beginning when Bryce was talking, I was like, okay, is there someone who shouldn't be using it? Is it like, is there a way to get the same prices without it? Like, what's the motive of not using it if it even exists? And the other side of it is like, how do you guys make all these potential users realize that okay, guys, you shouldn't be using these services like you're used to. You should use it through that other, to that new aggregator service, Altitude, which will actually give you better conditions. So you kind of should use it.
So I would say the one group that probably shouldn't use us is people that want to borrow at an extremely high LTV. So if you want to borrow at 70% LTV, then you can't really use Altitude. And even like if you want to borrow at 60, 65, it doesn't really make sense to use Altitude. So if you're kind of under, like if you're around 50 and under, I think then you're a good candidate for Altitude. Obviously, with price fluctuations and temporary situation, you can end up in a situation where you are at like 70% LTV. That's not a problem. But if your idea is like, okay, I'm going to kind of max leverage 70, 75%, I don't mind if I get liquidated, like that's just part of the game, then you're probably not the ideal for user of Altitude. So the ideal for what we've seen, like our biggest fans are people that barely touch their position. They just like once every few months, maybe they borrow a little bit more or they repay, but they just kind of sit there and kind of let all the automations do the work.
Yes, that's funny because I put you somehow in the same box as in my head as 40 acres and autopilot guys, you know. And I guess it's because it's like what you were saying. Mental model of this position is like, I know I can let it fly for months. You know, I would do a checkup on it once in a while. I know it's there, but it needs no input from my end. It's like it's a big point. I think as to why you would use the product. And to balance with the why not, maybe let's remember also it's still somewhat recent. I know people love that Lindy effect, you know, and they don't start me on this. But anyway, so it's what, 6 months operating roughly, not even. And you know, like all thing rebalancing, there is an additional risk technical you're taking there. And today, of all days, is an interesting thing to put the spotlight on this because, you know, Bunny just got drained of, we don't know exactly how much, around 10 M it seems, because of some flaw in the rebalancing logic that was abused, essentially, from what I gathered. So this is, you know, concrete manifestation that this added logic come with a risk. I believe you guys done the job proper, but it's there compared to not using such products where you just have risk of, you know, the lending protocol.
That's a good point. Like, don't put your life savings in here just yet. Give it a little bit more time. I mean, we take security and safety very seriously. I mean, we've done multiple audits. All the code has been audited twice. We've got kind of rate limiters. We've got like a real-time blockchain threat monitoring system, but it is still early days. So we've been operating for just over a year now. Kind of the first 9-10 months was in private beta, and then the last few months have been in more publicly. But yeah, like DeFi is still risky, for sure.
DeFi is risky for sure, but it doesn't mean that we won't use it. And also, it doesn't mean that the other alternatives aren't risky. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to that. Like I know, and again, like guys, this is not financial advice, and I'm not the one that you should be taking any financial advice from. But like for me personally, I don't know. I prefer smart contract risk and all that kind of stuff. Like I feel safer with what I use, and I also feel like it's not. I don't know. I don't only feel safer. I feel like it's fairer. Like I feel that in DeFi, I can come with my wallet and be treated as equal. If I go to a bank or whatever, I don't see it the same way. Like corruption is not. It's not even because of like that the other guy sitting there is corrupt or something like that. Like it's the old system is corruption as a system, and with DeFi, I'm not saying it's perfect. It's far from perfect, but I really think that it's such a romantic attempt of changing like how everything works. And for me personally, I'm very much drawn to it because of it. Like I can't think of another industry that is so ideologically driven as crypto, and on some levels like DeFi in specific. These are, and I'm not saying that, okay, of course people disagree and they represent different attitudes towards it, but I actually think that even the max decentralists and the opposites, like at the end of the day, they are taking something which is currently in a far worse situation and only trying to improve it. And in my opinion, also like decentralization, it can't come right away. We have to have like a lot of leaps and bounds to it, and we have to have like this long way of an assembly of Trojan horses in order to actually one day decentralize finance. But I think it's a process of I don't actually think it's decades. I think it's centuries. But honestly, I have no idea, but it is fascinating to observe how quickly things can move. You've touched on that point actually, Tobias, earlier when you mentioned the fact that people can build permissionlessly. Like you see a need, and you know how to code, and you just get to work. You don't even need to call anyone. You don't need to pick up the phone. You don't need to ask for any permission. It's only about you start moving, which is why I think the industry is capable of such an incredible pace. And maybe some of my predictions on how long things will take are actually way too long. But again, who knows? But I just really I admire people such as yourselves who really are changing the world, and they're creating better opportunities for people like me. If all of a sudden you say that, okay, I'm getting these conditions on a loan, but if I use your service, all of a sudden I'm going to get a better deal. This is true for everyone around the world. So this is such a huge impact that really, I just shout out to all you guys. Much respect for the brilliant work. Bryce, you've mentioned earlier that you see DAOs using this kind of product, which also makes sense according to what Tobias mentioned, because it doesn't make sense that DAOs will take risky loans, but it also doesn't make sense that, I don't know, that too much capital will remain just sitting idle. It's like the dumbest thing. So how do you see that happening? And maybe Tobias, if you have some stuff that you can elaborate on, like how do you guys try to get these DAOs and entities to check this product and use it? Because end of the day, as much as it is romantic to open it to everyone and to smaller users as big ones, like the actual impact really comes when big users and big money starts entering the scene. Like before that, people just don't know this protocols enough.
Yeah, I was more saying that, I guess, in the perspective of that it's maximally optimized for low LTV passive loans, to put it in a simple way. And so in that sense, that would fit the use case of a DAO or even a project raising money, uh, because it can also, without switching venue, adjust, as we were saying earlier with Tobias, to situation where, temporarily your LTV might go up because you're financing something or because the market is taking a dump. But overall, over the average, I don't know, 2 years of your loan, you've maintained 20-30% LTV. That's a good profile to use such a product. So in that regard, in the passive yet optimized dimension, yes. Where it is harder is, well, those DAOs, they tend to be very slow, conservative, and use many very old, battle-tested Max Lindy types of product. And so that's a hard part for any new project trying to attract the big guns. Essentially, is winning them over in terms of security, essentially.
Luca, I apologize. Just now seeing that
I'm back.
you're here. I deactivated the. Luca, I wanted to ask you earlier. What made you notice altitude? What made you see like an opportunity there? Whether it's personally, whether it's as a
It-
business. How did your side of things happen?
so it came through a couple of places. Well, like a friend of mine, actually, I'm part of something called Daedalus Angels, and it's basically a group of friends that invest together. And one of them, Ivailo, pinged me and said, "Hey, you should definitely take a look at this." The reason for it is he basically knew about my obsession of alchemics, self-repaying loans. And the reason why I was obsessed with this is because I know how banks usually function in a modern society, fractional reserve banking and all of the things like that. And for me, it was an evident, case, especially the fact that I, just like everybody else in crypto, has a long-term stash that I really don't want to sell. And I would sell only in the last possible moment. And, either it's Bitcoin or it's ETH or something else. And, that I've been leveraging it since forever. So you want to, I don't know, you want to invest in something, you deposit your ETH and then take out a loan to invest in, XYZ. And actually, I did, invest in a couple of opportunities like that. But then I started doing it with real stuff, like real world stuff. And then this is where I got connected to Tobias, and he explained to me how the whole system works, and I thought it was a very brilliant and novel way of doing things, because it's an automated way to do something manually. Just somebody else thinks it for you, and one thing led to another, and I basically I have multiple loans running on Altitude. Actually, this phone was bought with a loan that I issued, part of the loan that I issued on Altitude. I used to do that on Alchemics, and I used to try to red pill a lot of people, but then I said, okay, I really love what the guys are doing. And I a little bit became evangelist, because I really believe that these kind of things, like Altitude, should be brought to the more to the masses, in essence. I know a lot of friends, and for them, like, doing DeFi is really intimidating, and they have a wallet and they trade regularly, but DeFi is something super fishy and suspicious, at least in their brain. So I've been helping Toby and the team a little bit on the on getting the TVL up, trying to explain to the people, like, initially crafting the message a little bit, and things like this. And for me, I think one of the things that I like the most is that it's just basically this capital efficiency, which is this super fancy word of you have your assets, and while they're deposited somewhere, somebody else is using it instead of you. That's how banks work. Like, you deposit something in the bank, and then the banks runs it around. Here, this happens automatically for you, right? So, and it's safe if you know what you're doing, and that's the thing that kind of counts. So I'm gearing up. So I think in the middle of the next bear market, I think I'm gonna buy a car with a loan that I'm gonna take out with Altitude. That's gonna be my next step. Not gonna tell you which car, but yeah,
Man.
I still haven't decided.
Now that's a commercial for a protocol, guys. You know what I mean. Once you start seeing people showing what they purchased with what they get from the product, because I really think that this is where, in a way, the industry is stuck. Like for some of us, it's already clear that this stuff affects like the real world, the real life, and its actual money. But I don't know how it is for you guys. Basically, everyone I actually know in real life, for them, this is non-existent. Like they just think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Let's just say it like it is.
Imagine,
They just
imagine a
tell
loan.
themselves, who is this guy? What do they want? Like they go on with their lives. So I don't really know how to make that step. Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't know how to make that accessible, because I think that the vast majority itself, at least the majority I'm seeing, there's still like it's beyond the brick wall. Like there's a wall of fire for me to go through on that case. But for those who are kind of over it, like and they already know about DeFi, how do we get them like to know this stuff like Altitude? What kind of stuff are you guys doing, whether as the founder, as investors? How do you go about and like spreading the message and growing it? Is it really all like word to mouth? Is it all one by one, getting another investor, getting on another call, one more big account? Are there any other efforts of like go-to-market strategies? I'm very curious in general about how do we take all this incredible stuff that you guys are building and really making more and more people use it.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I mean, both Bryce and Luca have been super helpful already. I mean, Luca's been involved with us for a long time, and he always kind of helps me with ideas, and he's always spreads the message, and so that's amazing. And then Bryce obviously like tweeted about us a few times, wrote an amazing article about borrowing aggregation, which helped us a lot actually in kind of pointing that out more, because I think borrowing aggregation with the help of Bryce is starting to get a little bit of traction. That people understand, okay, you used to trade on a DEX directly, and then you started to use DEX aggregators. And now if you use a DEX directly, like why would you? Obviously, you're going to use an aggregator. And I think with borrowing, like that's where I see the space developing, and Bryce has done an amazing job kind of getting that in like that idea in the hands of more people. But yeah, apart from that, our strategy is basically get users to try it out with a small amount of money, and then make it very clear in the user interface what's happening, and then basically deliver what we promise. So you see the APYs on the interface, and then you see your loan, you see what you took out, you see what your loan is now, and we do everything we can to kind of project the right stuff. So like there are other DeFi protocols where there's an advertised APY of, let's say, 35%. You enter, you exit 2 weeks later, and you're like, oh, I actually lost money. How did this happen? Right. And so that's something that with every step of the way on building the product, we try to make sure that doesn't happen with us. So you get what you're being promised. And so that's what we see right now. We see the number of users is rapidly increasing. The TVL is lagging a little bit behind, because what we usually see is people put in maybe like 0.1 ETH, maybe 1 ETH, maybe 10 ETH. And then after a month or after 2 months, like, okay, I like this. I see where this is going. I see that my loan's going down. Okay, I'm now going to put like maybe a quarter of my ETH in there, maybe 50% of my ETH in there. And eventually they'll put all of their ETH with us. So that's kind of our growth strategy. We've decided to not focus on funds. which was in a way a pretty painful decision, because if you in this space, if you have a proposition for funds, that's your quickest route to $1 billion plus
TVL,
TVL.
but
Yeah.
not necessarily adoption sustained. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we didn't want to do, like push this to $1 billion TVL within 6 months and then have it crater afterwards because the funds just kind of move on to the next thing. So we're kind of choosing the in the short term, kind of the harder route of going after individuals, and really really trying to attract users that borrow and trying to attract people that use the product what it's built for. But it takes time.
What's
But
the
we believe in slowly then suddenly. So we're now in the slowly phase.
And maybe another element of context too is how to put it simply is like you're not going for any users that borrow. You're going for a subset of the borrowing, which in my my head I put as real borrow, if I may, in the sense that user is posting collateral, borrowing dollar, doing whatever with the dollar, might invest in a venture, might farm some stablecoin, who cares? But I kind of differentiate that from, I don't know, user is putting wrap stake is collateral to loop it. And, borrowing is, but, or the restaking on stable coins and so on, which creates a lot of volume in terms of, open interest. We don't call it that way in lending, but you get me. When at the end of the day, it's like AVI one of the top collateral now is SUSD, and what people are doing with it, they're borrowing stablecoin to loop the SUSD. And now you have, 6 billion TVL there. Okay, AVI is happy. They go on network, 45 billion TVL with the kings. Look at us. Why not? Probably do the same in that place, But if we're honest about it, I don't see them, $1 of this borrowing as equivalent as $1 of user put a volatile collateral and draw a dollar base or whatever, but 99% of the case dollar base line of credit. That's two same tools, but really different mindset, user situation, different everything. And that's kind of also, we go back to this complexification of the lending market. That's in response to that, because essentially the AVI of the world are adapting, emo, the isolation, whatever. We're adapting to, okay, users are doing that. We're going to optimize for users doing that, offer them a value to do that, while still catering for the other side, the generic borrowers. And what's happening is kind of logical, What's happening is you can write the story of this for anything. You don't have to use the name AVI and the name of the competitor. You have the dominant player who is also jack of all trade in a way it's designed just by necessity, and that's how he got big in the first place. But no, he's kind of the big lion got fat and he's being attacked on all the fronts, on the fronts of the serial crazy loopers. Well, you have the earlier, you have the silo, you have fluid, you have, more and more flavors and different ways of achieving this same thing, essentially. And no, on the side of, actually on Swiss side, on the side of very high levered borrowing using one single asset, that could be, to loop the collateral or whatever, just an aggressive borrowing. I'd say here is the CDP's model are more suited to offer to cater to this. And on the other third side of generic borrowing, preferably low LTV, major collateral, the like of the altitude and so on, that each deliver better for this subset of lenders than the mother frame, I want to say. And that's like kind of the transition phase we're into, is how do we get the users from the mother frame to the sub vessel that is more suited for their specific use case.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Because what you see now with Aave v3, for example, because it's a pool model, and because Athena is now generating really good returns, you see that the interest rates are spiking on Aave. So they're high at the moment. And I mean, it serves them well, right? A lot of TVL. But then as a user, if you're a user that's as an individual that kind of is not doing that, and you're still in that pool model, you might not you're paying a higher interest rate than you should. But that's what I love about DeFi. There's then someone else that will just pop up and build a new protocol and cater for that use case, and long may it continue.
By the way, I wanted to ask you guys, like, it's becoming obvious that for the user itself, it's just better to use like a product like Altitude because you just get better conditions. Are there for the specific users, like you said, that the ones who doesn't want like too much of a high LTV and that stuff? Is there also a benefit for the other side, like for the protocol who's being borrowed, like the fact that the user is not taking a direct loan over there and uses you guys to take it?
That's a great point. Yeah.
How is it for the other protocol? Like, are they? Is it not as good for them if it would have been direct? Is it just as the same? Is it better?
Is it like early Yearn when you see Yearn integrating your farm, you're like, oopsie, okay. Full dump of the reward token. No, we grew past this, but that's a great question, yes, actually. What's the impact on the rooted protocol?
Yeah, so the interesting thing for the lending protocols is that they actually benefit from Altitude because we increase the amount of borrowing. And lending protocols earn their money on the borrows. They don't earn their money on the deposits, they earn their money on the borrows. So the more someone borrows, the more a lending protocol earns. So when we see typical users move over from Aave, let's say they have a 30% loan to value loan, they move their loan over to Altitude, and then all of a sudden we're not borrowing at 30% anymore, but we're borrowing at 60%. So in that sense, the underlying lending protocols benefit from us because we borrow more. Obviously, as a lending protocol, you have to offer a competitive rate because otherwise, like Altitude's not using you. So what we've seen in the past is that we've been on both on Morpho and on Aave, and we switch between the two depending on the rates. So as a lending protocol, if you do your job well, then you offer low borrow rates. If you do your job well for the borrower, obviously, if you're doing your job well for the people that are depositing funds, then you may want to charge more interest. But for a borrower, you need to charge low rates. And if you do that, then you get the Altitude loans that are then using have a high utilization. So we borrow a lot. And then the DeFi protocols on the other side, where we deploy capital with them, and that's what they need. So in that sense, we're kind of increasing the amount of capital that's being used in DeFi.
So in a way, like, is there a theoretical situation in which, not even just theoretical, like it's in their interest to like get a user to, instead of using them directly, to use it through Altitude? No, like if it's just mathematically.
I mean, I can't speak for them. I mean, they will have their own kind of their own strategy, their own vision. I think there's something to say for both, right? I mean, on one hand, if you control the user, that's beneficial for them, right? We're an aggregator, so the users are not loyal to the underlying lending protocol. The users are loyal to us. So in that sense, as a lending protocol, you probably want to service the user directly. On the other hand, we increase the utilization. So I think there's something to say for both.
Yep.
Is it, do you think it's possible that at some point, like maybe only on specific loans, like for example, someone goes to Aave, and then on the Aave interface, maybe you can see that, listen, man, if you take this specific loan using Altitude, you'll get a better deal. But like, for example, if he can experience it on the lending market that he is, and then be offered it, I actually think that there's a very high conversion chance there, because most people,
It's not gonna happen, man.
they don't even know about this kind of service. But again,
Avi
like,
website is here to serve you Avi protocol. It's not here to help you optimize your borrowing terms. You know,
but
you
even
might
if it
be posting
but even if it
collateral on
plays for
mainnet
them
and
for their
borrowing,
favor.
and you know maybe you do the same on OP and you pay 3% less interest. And the interface is not gonna show you, hey bro, don't do that. Bridge your East to OP and borrow there. You will be
No,
much
I
better
mean
off.
for their own. I mean for their own loan. I'm not expecting Aave to advertise someone else's loan, but if they get a better deal
But
themselves,
they
someone will.
cannot guarantee that the liquidity is routed through them, because the liquidity on the other side is just kind of looking at the rates and going where the rate is best. So it's like kind of putting people on the road and then you don't know that road could go to your competitor or to you, and you have no control over that. I mean, the only control you have is to be maximally competitive on rates. So I can't see them integrating in any way, and they will not give a fuck. And especially with the morpho trauma, because I think that's also where your question came from. The impact on the supported protocol. I was thinking of Morpho, but Morpho was quite a different situation. Maybe just to be clear, we're talking of Morpho lending aggregator, so not current Morpho you're using, but what they were doing before. Because
The
essentially
optimizer.
this one, the optimizer. Thank you, that's the name. Because this one was the goal was to find a coincidence of one between borrowing and lending, and once that coincidence was found, essentially the lending borrowing was happening directly peer-to-peer, meaning the underlying platform was cut out from the equation along with its fees. So borrower and lender were better off, but obviously platform was worse off because it just lost a customer. As simple as that. Here the situation is essentially not the same at all, because the impact is neutral/positive in terms of utilization, and then it's kind of like fair game. It's up. Can you be competitive on the rate? If yes, you're getting more volume from us. If not, well, sorry, bro. That's that's a simple way to see it, I think.
It's less of a it's not a vampire attack. It's more like, because that's how you could describe the morph optimizers, I think. But it's a different route. But I agree that I would be surprised if Aave starts sending their users directly to Altitude. It would be great, but I only see that happen in a scenario where they don't care about individuals, for example, anymore. So let's say they go full on institutional, and they can't be bothered with serving like normal general users, and they kind of stop working on their UI and those kind of things. Then I can see them say, okay, actually, if you want to borrow like less than X, then go to Altitude. But I think that's an unlikely scenario.
By the way, guys, why Altitude? Why the name? Just because
elevated.
Loans elevated. Yeah, I like it. What's in the name? There's not a beautiful origination.
It's a nice name actually, but I was wondering.
Yeah,
guys, anything else we should add that we haven't mentioned that you want the audience to know? Stuff that I should have asked and I haven't. What's like important to know about Altitude and we haven't touched?
What's next? I want this one. Sorry, then go for whatever.
No, that was my question.
Perfect. Because that's clearly mine. When I hear something like a new product and whatsoever, I want to know like what can I expect. Like especially like I don't want your roadmap. I'm talking like putting the cap of a listener of that podcast that you piqued my interest with Altitude. So just tell me, what can I see coming to the application live usable in the next 3 to 6 months max?
Yeah. So I think the headline there is that we're fully focused on the borrowing experience. So we'll keep doubling down on that. So what we're launching soon is kind of a more insights. So at the moment we already show you the kind of the effective APR of your loan over the past period. So expect some more information there, where we make it more clear what's actually happening with your system, so that you don't have to do what you do with most other DeFi protocols, where you basically, when you take the position, you write it down in a spreadsheet, and then every time you do something in a protocol, you update your spreadsheet. So we're working on something where you can see that in a better way, and then the kind of the big theme for us is to just reduce friction. We'll launch a few features that kind of reduce friction for borrowers. That's all I can say without, because what we hate is kind of overpromise and underdeliver. So I don't want to talk too much about stuff that's on our roadmap, and then it takes forever to launch. But expect us to kind of double down on what we have.
Nice. Guys, lending aggregation, very underexplored so far. And to touch on your point earlier, by the way, to best, like, who swaps without an aggregator today? Like, I don't know. Like
Still way too many. Still way too many. Look at those fees for MetaMask and Ledger Live swaps and all those insanity.
and you're so much
80
more
BPS.
sophisticated than I am as a user. For me, something like cow swap, it solves.
Oh no, CoSwap is good. It's good. I'm
It solves
talking,
95% of what I need at the minimum. You know what I mean? So, but it definitely it's not putting me in the same situation of like. I don't know, to go to this DEX and that DEX and to put in the same amount and to see what kind of money, like to do the manual aggregating, like in decision making myself. Thank God for aggregators. By the way, I think that Leviathan uses a way, it's also an aggregator because it's about getting the community to see what's interesting and share it to the others. Like aggregation is something that we need. At any field, basically from every direction, because there's an abundance of things. We have to create some more. Aggregation is creating order, and it's actually a very essential thing to do, and it's a natural development, I think, of every service. And it's very exciting to see that we have these services built for us in DeFi, and now not only for swapping but for lending as well, which in a way can at some point become even I don't know, maybe even a bigger market than like I don't know, I don't have the numbers ahead of me, but like I can only imagine what an enormous market like lending is, and what a proper lending aggregator can like how much value can it bring, and
it's the aggregation
how
of
much
everything. The
capital
aggregator of
can
aggregator.
actually direct. Sorry, Bryce, what did you say?
Aggregation of everything. Aggregation of aggregators, even.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we kind of know the end game. It's gonna be one singular curated website to have your whole DeFi experience, and then users will not really care whether you're merging together 10 different services using some kind of quick fixes or whatsoever. If they go in one spot and they can track their performance, effective on-chain measured, not some estimation, categorize their asset, deploy them, see some return purpose. I mean, you gotta see where I'm coming at. But actually, I had a question for you, Tobias. So you mentioned earlier you're focusing a bit more on the analytics, essentially, if I get it right. We put it this way. Is this like stemming from an intuition on your end that users are liking already, that we're pretty clear on how we communicate and so on, and they would like more? Or is this more a response to like feedback? Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah. So the one of the things we found is that people, they take a loan, and then after a few months we ping them and we're like, hey, how do you like, how is your loan performing? How do you feel about your loan? And then people are like,
I
yeah, I
forgot
don't
about
really remember. Like,
it.
I checked it for the first few weeks, but after that, yeah, I just kind of moved on with my life. I don't really know how it's performing. So we feel like that could really enable our growth, where people, because people start using it, and then and then we make it really clear how it's performing.
It's Web3 job description. We're literally building an UI for retard who forgot they dropped money at our place.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also like it's finance, right? And like there's not many people that care that much about finance, and so we're dealing with a subsection of people in DeFi. There's a bunch of people that love technology, that love finance, and that love both. But there's a large group of people that don't care that much about finance. So they're like, once they've made a decision, okay, I bought this stock, or I took my loan there, or whatever, then they just want to move on and don't think about it too much. So yeah, that's one thing.
Interesting. Yeah, at the end of the day, sometimes I think like aggregation and curation are essentially the same thing, but aggregation aggregates quantitative data, and curation curates qualitative data. And I think we get this win of this singular, omnipotent, omniscient interface when we get the both, not just an aggregator, not just a curator, an interface that curates and aggregates in once. And it's funny because is coming to bite projects, all kinds of projects from all angles. So you guys are like, okay, we're gonna aggregate lending, and now you got into questions, you're exploring more options for lending. Should we integrate CDP or not? How do we convey that complexity to users? And it opens up tons of questions. But like, okay, what do I have that I can talk of? I don't know, Jumper guys, because they talked about this publicly. They did first the bridging, then they realized that the site said they need to take is essentially bridging, swapping. It's the same thing. We need to get users used to swap with us, even on the same chain, and then they will bridge with us. And now, still in kind of the same process, they're like, okay, what are they doing after they swap? Well, usually they're swapping into some stable, some whatever token, and they want yield. So what if we could present them a third step, like, hey, you have ETH on mainnet, you're gonna get USDC on base, and if you want, you can put them in Fluid and earn 10%. So they came at the but then how do we rank those options? How do we present them? Which one should be there? Which one should not be there? Which condition? Curation. And so it's it's just thoughts. Sorry, not specifically a question, but maybe I guess have you thought a bit? Because I feel like right now you really like aggregating. You're aggregating. But have you started to kind of touch the curation side of things? At least maybe in ideas or direction?
Yeah, I guess we're doing a little bit of curation already, where we say, okay, we're not just going to offer everything to all the users. So we've curated the decision of going for CBBTC and not wrap BTC. Right. So we're definitely an opinionated protocol where it's not just a matter of like permissionlessly like launch hundreds of vaults and then just see what sticks. So in that sense, we're also part curating, and yeah. So yeah, it's I think we're kind of doing a combination of that, and I could see also a world where we have third-party curators. If we go that way, I could see a world where curators would implement us, or like wallets would implement us as a loan aggregator. So people don't necessarily know that they're using Altitude, but they're using Altitude under the hood.
Some
So for
DeFi scan conditional logic on your Altitude vault, like, hey, you can yield farm with my tokens, no problem, but only hit stage 1 or above.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that like as a curation strategy, that would be pretty cool. But I think it's also I think I agree with you that like a super app is amazing for users, but the one risk I see there is that you don't want to be kind of jack of all trades, master of none, right? So that's the difficult trade-off that you do. Like, if you offer users all these things, you also have to make sure that you offer them a pretty good experience. Because if they can get the same thing somewhere else with a specialist, like let's say the bridging. If you offer bridging, if you're not a bridging protocol, but you offer bridging, you need to make sure you offer it at really competitive rates. Because if you don't offer competitive rates there, then you're basically telling your users, okay, use my bridge, but I'm going to charge you a lot. So then you're kind of educating your user that they shouldn't really use your other services. So that's kind of I think a tricky trade-off.
Yeah, I think you put the point on the important part, the experience, and it's still what we're missing. And even like the Infinix or the few others, like I think they're going in weird directions to me, like rebuilding their own bridging, for instance, like oh bro, Bungie or Jumper, pick your poison, integrate that, and move on. This is not your core focus. And I think we need a guy that is like this, like almost autistically like this, like, oh, bridging, no, okay, Jumper guys, the lending, oh no, Altitude guys, risk, okay, DeFi scan, and then just essentially his thing would just be tapping into 25 others and pretty much doing nothing apart from presenting the information super clearly to the user and guiding them the way through it.
Yeah, like a DeFi super app or something, right? Like where as a user, okay, I go to this place and they've done an amazing job at curating everything. So I know I'm going to get the best swap, the best bridge, the best loan, everything.
But do you guys believe that this will actually be the case? I actually think that, on a specific DeFi app, it's maybe one of the things I fear the most. Because it is like, it's the most centralized thing that can happen to our industry, in a way,
in terms of interface,
If there's really like one too strong DeFi app, in a way. But I do agree that like the market will decide. Listen, the market always decides.
Market will decide, and it's like when people were shocked because Lido was too big, why not? But
Good
I don't
point.
see them shocked today that I don't know,
No,
like
no.
most of DeFi TVL is in Avi, that could be also, oh no, we need to rebalance our TVL between lending protocol, let's do a big crusade. No, so at the end of the day, markets speak. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, I just
Yeah,
realized, I realized something funny trivia. You using altitude. Oh yeah, I need to communicate on this for the listeners. It's public service announcement. So using altitude is an efficient way of bypassing the merit program exclusion of Morpho users for Go holders. So yes, this is a bit of a weird anti-competitive practice. I check if your wallet interacted with Morpho, and if it did, you are excluded from rewards or reduced from rewards. I'm not sure, but essentially there is a
Don't
negative
say that
declaration.
twice. They're gonna
Yes.
exclude altitude too.
But if you use altitude, it's this altitude contract interacting with Morpho, so your hands are clean, your wallet is clean. You can go and say, yes, I've been a good little ghost. Give me my yield, please, and get your full yield. DeFi, it never ceases to amaze. It's so fun.
you heard it there first.
Another benefit of using altitude recognized by TokenBrice. Can't say I'm surprised. This is exactly what we should actually be doing. We should have like this like show that's like gossiping about like funny stuff from the industry. How did you see that ball? How they excluded this guy? Did you see that? Like we will actually have like the complaints panel and the gossip panel of DeFi. I think we will actually have more views than
That's not a bad
people,
idea.
than
Like V
people
Club.
are willing to admit. Actually, I think it will be a very watchable show, and I actually think it will be quite entertaining. Which I also think that people are also looking for some of that. Like especially like the savvy ones. They can read docs. You know what I mean? They don't need me to explain to them what's written there. But to know all these things that unless you hear that founder told that one, they're like these little pieces of info that they're not written anywhere. You know what I mean? They may be written on the some kind of a Discord on a day that you weren't on it and you weren't noticing. But a lot of the juicy stuff, the interesting stuff that I think, I don't
I
know, at least
have
for me,
juice
it's
for
always so
you,
exciting.
the
Uh,
advisor. Fresh juice and topical.
This is like
Uh,
having a reporter, like having Bryce is like having a reporter on field. And it's like, let's move on to Bryce
the
with some
field
updates
being
about lending.
CT. So no, it's a project I was following because it's also a bit in similar ideations. Um, I will not do it justice proper because I still need to beef up, but I can give you a high level because it's again in the lending aggregation idea, but tackling it by another angle. So it's this twine protocol, and it's really a matter of making better use of the unused borrowing capacity. So it's kind of similar to you guys, but instead of doing it for the users and all of that, here the idea is more to resell that extra unused borrowing capacity to some other user that pay to use it, but is interested to pay because you get the spiel. So it creates extra yield for the borrowers that don't use it, and so on. So that's Twine protocol. I saw they just launched today. Let me share this tab instead. So that's their protocol, just all fresh. Apparently now you can. It's really Rapis focused, so not even stablecoin, but you can see like the impact of their boosted LTV as they call it, because they have this user delegating the credit capacity. And so I guess that could be interesting for loopers, this borrow side of the product. And then for the earn side, it's more about single asset exposure that you can withdraw anytime with the utilization logic kink, and as long as you're not fully utilized. But anyway, we won't deep dive, but for those who want, it's a good next thing to focus on. I just wanted to give them a shout out. So here's Twine on the lending aggregation, tackling it through the angle of the liquefaction of unused excessive borrowing capacity. Let's put it
Is
that way.
Does it work with the credit delegation from Aave?
Yeah, I think it used credit delegation because they mention it explicitly, but they're not using Aave right now. They're using they built on Euler.
Euler. Yeah.
Okay.
We invested in them, by the way.
Oh,
Really cool guys.
oh,
Really
nice.
cool guys. Yeah. Amazing team.
Always alpha with Bryce, and seems like with Luca and Tobias as well. Okay, we have a next one to talk about, and I'm really happy that we had this opportunity to discuss, at least for me personally, about lending aggregation. I actually think that this is now like a niche product who, at least in my opinion, will become the norm. Like, at least for users like myself, I have no idea how to choose like a loan. So for me, it's much like, it's actually a very essential tool to be directed into like, listen, man, go there. What do you have? What token do you have? How much do you want? For how long? Go there. Enough. Because honestly, like, it's so much research, it's so much responsibility, it's so much energy and time to put into. And frankly, I don't think I can make an informed decision, even if I take a few months to do it. Like people who have chosen it to be like their mission and like profession to optimize this kind of stuff. So I'm pretty sure that just like I'm not going to Uniswap as if it's 2021 or 2022, and I'm just going personally, usually shout out CowSwap. If CowSwap can find it for me, great. If not, I will handle it. But usually it does, and it's simpler for me. And I really see that evolving in lending as well, especially as more and more people, because it's like it's only like 20 people so far, I guess, that know that DeFi lending exists in general. So it's definitely something that we'd want to simplify once the real normies start arriving. And guys, I've had an honor having you on. Where should people follow, Tobias? Where should they follow you personally, if you want? And of course, the project, the community. I saw that you guys, you're everywhere, basically. I saw that you have Telegram, Discord, X. Where should people be informed? And do you have any like community calls where you update the community in general about what you do on a regular basis?
So yeah, best place to follow us is on Twitter or X. So just follow. It's altitude FI_. That's where we try to post all the important stuff there. So if you want to stay up to date on altitude, then that's the best place to be. And obviously our kind of website, www.altitude.fi, and then from there you can go to the app and to the docs. We've got a Telegram community that's very active. So yeah, that's the best place to stay up to date.
Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, Luca, as well, for joining. It was an honor to have you on for the first time as well. And Bryce, my friend, as usual, always an honor and always fun. Thank you for the constant alpha. Guys, Altitude, hope they can say it on screen. Altitude Phi _ go check them out. Notice the details, notice the app. So much alpha in one place. Actually, for those of you who are lending, there's a very good chance that you could be getting a better deal if you use Altitude Finance. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. One last shout out to our sponsors of the week and my new friends at the Francophone Association, who I enjoy working with on some content, the Swiss franc stablecoin. Go check it out. Now available multi-chain, by the way, ever since a month ago. And we have some exciting news on Thursday, so follow us at the Frankencoin ZCHF and expect some updates about our upcoming AMA this Thursday, 7 p.m. Central European time. And hope to see you guys soon as well. Tobias, Luca, and Bryce with some updates whenever it's relevant. You're always welcome. And thank you so much for taking so much of your time and patience to let our audience know about this incredible new instrument that they can be using, which can probably get them better deals and save them some money. And I really hope to see you guys all over the place in the next few months on a variety of podcasts, because I really think it's an important message that we should keep putting out. And I do want to offer you, of course, to just like with any project or anyone else, whenever you do have an update and you want to share, you can also use our TG bot or using our website to push the news and the updates through. Unlike many other crypto media outlets, we kind of want all the news and then have our editors or like the editing room, whatever we call it, we call it the HQ, the headquarters, where people actually decided, like see the votes for every headline, and they actually see if they push it up. But if it's a real DeFi headline, it basically always goes through. Much respect for your great work. Thank you so much for your time. And everyone, go follow Altitude 5 for some lending aggregation and some good deals that you aren't getting directly from your favorite lending app, maybe. So use the power of the people and getting to a higher altitude. That's what I was saying.
Awesome. Thanks for
Bye,
having us.
everyone. Have a great